Hey guys, and welcome to RC and Legos, and today we're rebuilding my Stampede 4x4 VXL. We got some fast eddy bearing kits, and I also have some drive shaft rebuild kits that you can get from Traxxas. So we're gonna swap them in and a couple more other new parts and see how much better it drives. All right, let's get to it. Alright guys, I'm to rebuilding the axles now. Now these I've already sort of rebuilt before, and the boots on them seem pretty good except for this one. You can see it's cracked there. So I am going to replace this boot, but the other ones on it seem to be fine. So I'm just going to clean it up a bit and replace this boot on this one. And you can tell there's no grease in this side. You can hear it. So I'm going to rebuild this side and maybe the whole thing. But I do have one thing to tell you guys, and it is about the center differential. It is actually sealed and it's got diff oil in it, kind of like what you put in your shocks, but stiffer. So unless you're gonna go out and change it, do not open this because it is sealed, and well, it's just gonna make a mess of everything. Luckily, I didn't lose too much fluid when I took it apart, so it still feels pretty good. But just so you know, keep that in mind. If you don't have any, then probably shouldn't open it. And then got all these parts cleaned up. Need to rebuild the shocks still. As you can see here, they're still kind of dirty. Everything else is all cleaned up and ready to go back in. So once I get these built, get them cleaned up, you can put the new bearings in and then put the rear back together. All right, let's get to it. Alright, the axles are rebuilt. They all feel nice. So now it's time to break open some new parts. I got here these rear hub carriers. You can see here, number 1952. And so we're going to be putting some of those in. And of course, new bearings. And then last but not least, we will rebuild the shocks. But let's start getting everything back together. Alright guys, there we go. It is back together. Now it's time to rebuild the shocks. But a little note, you can put grease on here, and I put grease around here. So I also put grease down here, and on this side too, and out on the ends. Now it's time to rebuild the shocks. Here we go guys, the shocks are rebuilt because I didn't take them apart and replace the oil in them. All I did was clean them up. So they are cleaned up. I actually rebuilt the shocks a little while ago, probably about a month or so. So I don't think they need to be rebuilt again right now. But they're all cleaned up and ready to be put on the truck. All right, shocks are on. Little hint on getting your shocks on is leave the screw loose so you have an easier time of getting the shock down in here. And then once the shock is in, you got the bolt in, you can tighten them both up. Also make sure that you don't have the top of these too tight because otherwise it can't move freely. But with that said, it is all back together, at least the rear is. Now let's work on the center chassis. All right, here's the center chassis. You can see there's not much to it. So really all that we need to maintenance is this here, which can just slide out. Supposed to. There we go. Looks like the drive shaft's coming out too. All right, so that bearing flew out, which here it is, locked up right now. This bearing right here is a big problem in these trucks. And so people actually make upgrades. This is actually the motor mount is what this is. And basically people have made it so it accepts a bigger bearing so it lasts longer. Because if that bearing goes out, well, you most likely will strip a spur gear. And I've gone through many of those bearings in these spur gears. So this will be an upgrade in this video, but for right now, I'm just gonna put the bearing that came in the kit. I'll just put it back in there and we'll upgrade it later. But let's get this all cleaned up and serviced. There we go, guys. I think I have this on backwards, but that's not too hard to flip around. But there it is. The back is rebuilt and on, and the new bearing for the center drive shaft. And also got it somewhat cleaned up in here and on here. Also, just so you know, the longer screws go in the bottom and the shorter ones on top. Right there and there to hold the back on. Also, make sure that you get this under this lip here. Sometimes I've had it where it's over and then, then you just have to take out all the screws again and fix it. But yeah, so now it's time to work on the front, which I can see this side is already seized up. This side spins fine. You can see here that this side's seized up. So good thing we're replacing all the bearings. You guys are wondering what this solution is that I'm using to clean up all the parts. It is some ibupropic alcohol and a little bit of olive oil. The ibupropic alcohol cleans up the parts, but on plastic it makes it look old, and basically you need something to bring that color back. So if you put a tiny little bit of olive oil in it, it makes the plastic almost look like new. Now, as you can see, I didn't do a very good job at cleaning some of these parts up, but I was just trying to get the main mud off so I could put some grease on it and stuff. But if you did a better job, these would look basically like new parts. So pretty cool. All right, folks, I got some other upgrades. Well, this isn't an upgrade, but it is a replacement. Got a new 54 tooth spur gear for it because the one in there is stripped out currently. But here I got this aluminum motor mount. Now I might be thinking, why do you need an aluminum motor mount? The plastic one has been holding up fine. That is true, but this has an oversized bearing in it, which means it is bigger, so it should be able to handle more stress. That is a problem. The stock bearing is pretty small in there, so it breaks a lot faster. So hopefully it will last longer with this oversized bearing. So yeah, we're gonna install, well, that's one way to do it. Well, the new parts are in, and you can see them in there. That nice pretty blue motor mount looks very nice. Got the spur gear in. Well, it practically did it by itself. So I guess that is about it. We rebuilt all the bearings, replaced the motor mount and the spur gear, and it should hopefully last for, who knows, maybe another 10 years. I guess I'll run it a little bit before I end. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Maybe you learned something about rebuilding the axles or maybe part of the truck. And please leave a comment if you have any questions about fixing anything that we showed in this video. And I hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye.